Hey everybody, welcome to Jump Ball. This is Adam, one of the three amigos that hosts this, and this is a different thing we're trying. This is going to be kind of a bonus episode type of situation that we've been talking about doing. That's going to be a little bit more educational. We're just two or three of us, whoever can, is going to get on and just chat about something in the NBA that we like chatting about. And we're all going to have kind of our own little niche. Mine, of course, is going to be what we're calling weird old shit, where I just get to talk about old NBA stuff and like teach them some stuff. And Brock and AJ are going to have their own segments, but we're going to kind of mix these in with normal episodes still. So that won't change. Hopefully it'll just be more content. But this week, we decided to kind of get this going because AJ's just got life going on. So it's just going to be me and Brock for this week. So we're going to do a couple bonus episodes. I'll have one. Brock will have one. And we'll just try this whole thing out. And so I got Brock here with me. And Brock, how you doing, man?
I'm doing good. I'm ready for this. We've been talking about doing these bonus episodes or this like extra content for a while now. So I think this is the perfect week to get the ball rolling on them.
Hey, give her a go here. So, Brock, what do you know about territorial draft picks?
That, to me, is just such an old weird thing. And
correct.
So it's just
Thank you.
It's just one of those things. It's like, oh, let's pick the hometown kid. You've seen it like a few times in my recent memory of like watching drafts. Like, for example, I know this is football, but the Michigan and Aiden Hutchinson grew up in Michigan, played for Michigan, then got drafted by Detroit. He's just a really good player. I don't know if like all that Detroit or Michigan lineage all lined up, but like, it's just one of those things that, that's weird. That's a weird old thing. I don't know why that should play into you drafting someone, but it did. So.
Well, the reasoning really was, because I'll let you know, so territorial draft picks, they were a thing from 1949 until 1966. So good 15, 16 years there. 17, actually. I'm bad at math. But, and the reasoning was, in the early days of the NBA, college basketball was much more popular than professional basketball. And so the NBA essentially decided to allow this so that if there's a guy at, hypothetically, like the University of Iowa, and then if there was like a Des Moines NBA team, it would be like, well, let them have that guy at the University of Iowa so all those fans that used to just go to college basketball games can go have their favorite players still around here. So that's the theory. It was really all just to sell tickets and like give these NBA teams a boost in trying to do that.
And I feel like we still see that sometimes just because like we're in Iowa, so we have the G League team of the Timberwolves, and like they have signed some Iowa names before, like Luka Garza. I don't know if that had a factor. He's big time basketball in Iowa and obviously national. But then like we signed him to a two-way. I think he's going to be a restricted free agent coming up. But then you see like some Iowa State guys rolling here and there. I think Jordan Bohannon, Iowa Hawkeye legend. Like he's still hanging around Iowa. So I feel like the selling tickets, I still feel like that's an aspect that they're still doing just because, we don't have a professional sports team here, which I think we should. I don't care. Like I would assume football or baseball would probably do better out of the big four, maybe hockey, but no, yeah.
I mean, we have the professional teams of like in regards to like farm teams, or we have like an arena football team, which they technically play or pay them, and like Iowa Cubs, the AAA, and then Iowa Wolves, the G League. So yeah, they got professional, but anyway. So for what I want to do with territorial picks for this episode, because there's not that many guys who were territorial picks. The way that it would work would be that if I'm a team and I have the 7th overall pick in the draft, I can just say, hey, I don't want to use that pick and I want to use a territorial pick. And then before the draft, like a week or a month or whenever you essentially send in the paperwork and the NBA would approve it and say, yeah, okay, that makes sense. He's your territorial pick. Then he's just already picked before the draft even happens. And you forfeit that first round pick.
That's insane. Just like Larry Bird. Like if territorial picks were still a thing, Pacers could have had Larry Bird instead of him going to the Celtics, or just like that's
yeah. The idea that like the league would look absolutely nothing like it does now.
Nothing.
Like and part of the reason why they did away with territorial picks that I read was because like the top elite college talent became so centralized at like the blue bloods, Kentucky, right. Kansas, Duke and UNC, and none of those schools technically qualify to be used in territorial picks because the rule was that the stadium that the NBA team plays in has to be 50 miles or less from the college campus. And so none of those four schools have an NBA arena within 50 miles of them. And so just none of them would.
Imagine how
the best talent wouldn't even come out in territorial picks anyway.
Well, imagine if the Charlotte Hornets were a thing, or the Bobcats. Like, are they within 50? I don't know. I guess it's not in 50 miles.
No, Charlotte's not.
It doesn't even count. Wow.
Yeah. But they would just get their free pick every year. So it'd be interesting, but so we're gonna just go through all the territorial picks, and some of these fellas are noteworthy. Many of them are not, but they deserve a shout out, you know. So starting, well, dude, I don't know. I think
we'll get to the names and we'll see. I'll decide that one.
Yeah, there's some good ones in here. So starting in 1949, there were two territorial picks: Ed McCauley. And Vern Mickelson.
We've talked about these two, haven't we?
Yeah, they're both Hall of Famers.
For the
McCauley went to the St. Louis Bombers. He went to St. Louis University. I think he then was a Celtic, like in his best years. And then Vern Mickelson was Minneapolis Lakers, and he went to Hamline University in St. Paul, Minnesota. So they got that pick. Yeah, both Hall of Famers. Otherwise, not crazy interesting. But back in the day, they were some of the better players because weren't that many guys around.
And they weren't that good.
They were good at the time. Speaking of, and this next guy, so the next year in 1950, one of the all-time basketball greats gets picked. Paul Arizin. You know Paul Arizin?
Is he a coach?
He was. I don't think he's alive anymore.
Oh.
Yeah, but he
Educate me.
Yeah, he is credited. You're not going to believe this. He's credited with creating the jump shot. People didn't jump when they shot until Paul Arizin.
I mean, I'm not going to lie. I don't jump a lot when I shoot. I don't get off the ground very high. So, I mean, not my goat.
Fair. Okay, whatever. But so the reason, but this I thought was interesting. The reason that he would jump to shoot is because he didn't play like organized basketball in his youth. He tried out for his high school team his senior year. He didn't make the team. And so, like, in summers, like in high school, he would just go play in these, like, makeshift basketball pickup games that were in, like, high school cafeterias, or, like, one of them was in a dance hall, and the floors were really slippery. So he couldn't, like, he essentially couldn't make any moves to get open enough to shoot. So he would just jump and shoot over his defender. And also, he was very well known for having just, like, a fucking line drive shot, because he would play in these like low ceiling rooms that aren't made for basketball.
So it was the only way to do a jump shot was the line drive.
Yeah. It was necessity. And this was my favorite story about Paul Arizin, right? So, failed to make the team his senior year of high school. And then Arizin graduated high school. And then he went to Villanova. That's where he eventually went to college. And he was a freshman. And he was playing in this, like, Catholic youth summer league, like, in the area. And he was just getting buckets. And so the coach of Villanova came because they were like, everyone was talking about this Paul Arizin kid, and everyone assumed he was like a high schooler because nobody had heard of him. And then the Villanova coach like went and watched Arizin got buckets, jumping and shooting. And the Villanova coach met him after the game and said, "Hey son, when do you graduate? You feel like coming to Villanova?" And Paul Arizin said, "I go to Villanova. I'm a freshman at Villanova.
I'm a student, man."
Yeah. I live on campus there, idiot. But then they got him on the team. He was like an All-American, went to the league, won like a couple MVPs, Hall of Famer. Great guy.
Great guy.
Great guy. So he was a territorial pick to the Philadelphia Warriors out of Villanova.
These team names are still so weird to me. Like the Philadelphia Warriors, the Minneapolis Lakers, which I know that one, or the St. Louis Bombers. They need to bring the Bombers back. That's a cool name.
Bombers is pretty cool, yeah. So moving on a year to 1951, there was one guy who's very irrelevant, except he's got a great name. All-time great name.
Okay. They all can't be all-time great names. They're laying on me.
This one is Whitey Skoog.
Yeah, that qualifies. That's an all-time great name. Whitey Skoog.
Yeah, wasn't very good at basketball, but he went to the Minneapolis Lakers out of the University of Minnesota. Next guy, 1952. Most of these only had like one guy per draft that they would use territorial picks on. This next guy, his name is Bill McAvee, and I want you, throwing it back to last week's episode, the Jump Ball Spelling Bee, I want you to try to spell McAvee. It's Malkavee. Malkavee.
M-C.
Wrong.
Okay.
Yeah, this is one of the most insane names. I wish I would have put this in the spelling bee. There's no shot. Slouching again. So his last name, Malkavee, is spelled M-L-K-V-Y.
M-L-K-E-Y. There's one vowel in that?
V-Y. There is no vowel than Y. And his nickname that he got in college while he was at Temple University was the Owl Without a Vowel. Because he had great vision.
That nickname's sick. That's a great nickname.
Very sick nickname. Very weird name. And so in 1952, he got drafted by the Philadelphia Warriors out of Temple University. And you'll notice that the Philadelphia teams, they just drafted everybody with these territorial picks. And they were one of the reasons they stopped using these, because Philadelphia had like 4 really good basketball schools all like in Philadelphia. So it just wasn't fair.
Seems busted, yeah.
Yeah. And Bill McAvee, so he's in school, and then he got drafted, territorial pick, and while he was playing on the Warriors, also was going to dental school at Temple, on his off time. And then the Warriors GM, Eddie Gottlieb, who will come up again later, made Malkavee choose between school and basketball. He said, you can't do both. If you're going to play on the team, you got to just play on the team, or you can go to school. And Malkavee initially was going to play basketball, but then he got drafted into the Army. And the Army said, hey, if you say I'm a basketball player and you get drafted into the Army, you're just a private in the Army. You're a grunt. You're going to have to go out there and fight. But if you say, I'm not going to play basketball, I'm going to go to dental school, we'll wait to pull you into the Army until you're done with dental school, and you can come into the Army as a dentist.
Oh, there you go.
And so he was like, yeah, psych, I'm going to go to dental school. So he played 1 year for the Warriors in this territorial pick and then just went to dental school.
What a waste of a pick. I mean, but like...
Waste of a pick.
Yeah, it was... What a weird thing. This is a weird thing
weird.
They thought that was okay. Like, how could they not see... Like, obviously hindsight's 20/20. But, like, how could they not see, oh, Philadelphia, they got really a good 4 schools around them. Like, how are they not going to be good? And, like, even if they win the championship and they have a stud at Nova, they can just pick them. Like, no one else has a shot.
Yeah. It's wild. So then we got a whole bunch of other guys. We got 3 guys in 1953, all kind of nobodies. Ernie Beck, Walter Dukes, Larry Hennessy.
No, his name is Hennessy. Larry Hennessy.
I swear to God, these are real names. All old names are sick. I don't know what they were doing back then. And then in 1955, another couple nobodies. We got Dick Garmaker and Tom Gola. And these guys went to Philly, New York, Philly, Minneapolis, Philly. A lot of the same guys there, pulling from the same schools. And then 1956, one of the great drafts by any franchise. And it's my Boston Celtics. 1956, they use a territorial pick. They get Tom Heinsohn because he went to College of Holy Cross in Worcester, Massachusetts. Then they got this territorial pick, but then they trade up into the first round again. Not just into the first round, to pick number 2. And they get the territorial pick, Tommy Heinsohn, and Bill Russell in one draft.
Wow, what a draft.
That draft is the dynasty.
Yeah.
Essentially.
You don't say.
Because then Tommy and Bill, both rookies on the Celtics, get top 2 in Rookie of the Year voting. Tommy Heinsohn wins. Beats Bill Russell for Rookie of the Year.
That's insane.
Wow.
And like, your Celtics, man, they just traded Marcus Smart, and a lot of people were comparing him to Tommy Heinsohn or Heinsohn?
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay. Well, anyway.
I say Heinsohn, usually.
We'll go with Heinsohn. They were saying that, like, Tommy Heinsohn was kind of the heart and soul of those Celtics teams from, like, these, like, Twitter and, like, you know, talk shows and all that stuff. So they're comparing it to, like, the Celtics back then trading, you know, their heart and soul, which for you, I don't know if Marcus Smart is your heart and soul. I mean, he played defense.
I hope not.
But
I mean, I liked him, but
his shot selection was atrocious.
Yeah. I think that's pretty generous to Marcus to compare him to like a 9-time All-Star Tom Heinsohn. But moving on to 1958, we got Guy Rogers. He's pretty irrelevant. Went to Temple again, Philly again, and then Wilt Chamberlain. You know this guy? You ever heard of him?
Once or twice.
Yeah, real good at basketball.
He was a territorial pick. That's ridiculous.
That's what a lot of other NBA teams are saying, because Wilt Chamberlain went to the University of Kansas. There is not an NBA team within 50 miles of the campus of the University of Kansas. But of course, everybody fucking really wanted Wilt. So the Philadelphia Warriors just write the paperwork to be like, hey, NBA, we're taking Wilt Chamberlain with a territorial pick. And they send it in, and the NBA's like, no, you can't do that. He's at the University of Kansas, like, denied. And then they appealed it and like went to court about it because they thought that whatever in the rule of territorial picks, that if no team, they interpreted it, or their lawyers got them to interpret it as if a player's college doesn't qualify for any territorial picks, then they have to default and go to the high school campus.
Oh, that's a loophole and a half right there.
Loophole and a half. So, but the NBA didn't have a good case, I guess. So they were just like, all right, yeah, I guess you default to the high school campus if the college campus doesn't qualify for any of them. So they got Wilt that way. So Eddie Gottlieb, I brought him up earlier, right, is the owner of the Philadelphia Warriors. I was just looking through Wilt's Wikipedia page, and I thought this was interesting. Wilt by the time he was in the NBA, he was like, he already spent a year on the Globetrotters, and he was like on Time Magazine. Like, he was like a absurd celebrity already before he even started playing NBA basketball. So he requested and got, at the time, the largest NBA contract ever for his rookie year, which was $30,000.
Hey.
Big money, big money. And I thought this was fascinating. 7 years prior to this, in 1952, Eddie Gottlieb, that's the year he bought the Warriors franchise, and he bought the franchise for $25,000.
Huh.
Wild to me.
It's insane.
Literally spent more for a year of Wilt Chamberlain than for the entire franchise a few years prior.
I mean, Wilt's probably worth it. 30.
Yeah, tough to say. He's not, but. And then just got some other guys here. What was the only one? Actually, there was another guy in 59, but no one really cares. His name was Bob Ferry. He went to St. Louis University, got drafted to the St. Louis Hawks at that point. No longer the Bombers.
Yep, no longer the Bombers. Got rid of that one.
And then, 1960, another guy we all really know, Oscar Robertson. Territorial pick. But this was a weird one, right? Because he went to University of Cincinnati. And
Buffalo?
What?
He got drafted to Buffalo, right? Buffalo Royals?
No.
Oh.
The Cincinnati Royals.
Oh, okay. Cincinnati Royals. Okay.
Yeah. So it made sense that it was a territorial pick. The funny part of this is that the Cincinnati Royals had the number 1 overall pick. But they just went ahead and did the paperwork like a month before the draft and were like, yeah, we're going to use a territorial pick on Oscar Robertson. And it was like, but you could just pick him. First.
So did the NBA make him take him number 1 overall?
No, they allowed the territorial pick.
And they still got the number 1 pick.
Yeah, they gave up because if you use a territorial pick, you lose your first round pick.
Oh, okay. That makes more sense because I was just thinking okay, continue.
But the NBA was just like, well, why are you doing that? Like, you can just draft him on draft night and he can be the number 1 pick. But they were like, no, we want to do it now.
They want to,
and then
no chance. Maybe they trade the first round pick.
The reasoning that they gave is because they didn't want to have to field trade offers. So they just locked it up and submitted it and said, there's nothing we can do now. We're using the territorial pick to just lock it up.
They don't want to field trade. That's hilarious. We don't want to do more work. We don't want to see what we could possibly get.
Just don't call us. We're locking it in. Yeah, they just locked it in.
They love Oscar there.
And so technically, this is always the interesting part then, is technically, like, is Oscar a number 1 pick? Because he's technically a territorial pick, but the team that used the territorial pick had the number 1 pick. So is he?
Is there anyone else in that draft? Well, I guess we don't know, like, the hype at that time. It's like, okay, was Oscar the consensus number 1? If, like, someone else had the number 1 overall pick besides the Royals, was Oscar still going to go 1? I would say probably most likely yes.
It sounded like it was going to be Oscar, no matter what. Like, that's why they just wanted to lock it up and not field offers. But but technically, then the guy who he's technically the number 2 pick because the number 1 pick was just subbed out for a territorial pick, but it still was the first pick, Jerry West.
Ooh, okay. I mean, obviously, hindsight, right? We both know how their careers end up. But it's like, teams could have opted for Jerry. You never really know, I guess.
Oh, yeah. No, and there's a lot of great guys in this draft. Lenny Wilkens, he's like one of the better Hawks players ever. Tom Sanders, part of the Celtics dynasty there. Like, one of the leading scorers of that Celtics dynasty. So, some really, really good guys down here. So, yeah, but they just locked it in. They just called it.
Just called it.
Called the shot. Don't call us. Don't want to talk about it.
Nope.
So that was 1960. 1962, we got a couple guys. Dave DeBusschere to the New York Knicks. Actually, no, I had that wrong. He's famous for being a Knick, but he actually went to the University of Detroit and went to the Pistons. Yep. And then another Cincinnati Royals pick here, Jerry Lucas, who was Oscar's essentially number 2 guy in Cincinnati. But the interesting wrinkle of this, because he went to Ohio State University, and there were 2 All-Americans on Ohio State University's team that went into the draft that year. And they could have taken either one with the territorial pick, but they chose Jerry Lucas. Could have had John Havlicek.
And then he falls to the Celtics, just like...
And the Celtics just pick him up like normal.
Yep.
Normal draft.
I can't wait for my bonus episode. You're going to be a sad boy.
Oh, no. Oh, why didn't you tell me that?
We're recording it right after this. I mean, we'll probably drop... Like I said, we're going to drop it the same week. But I just can't wait for your reaction to what I have to say. But anyway, so yeah, George Lucas.
Okay.
John Howard.
George Lucas. Jerry Lucas. George Lucas is the guy who made Star Wars.
Same guy in my mind. Continue.
Yeah, whatever. So we're getting down to our last few years here. 1963, Tom Thacker, Cincinnati again, but from the University of Cincinnati. Walt Hazzard to the Lakers from UCLA. The Lakers have now moved to LA, and they are going to use a couple here towards the end from UCLA, which great move just from a territorial pick standpoint. Like if they would have kept this, if they would have kept territorial picks going for another like 5 years, the Lakers could have just had Kareem and Bill Walton.
That would have been so broken, so busted.
Yeah. And so, yeah, we got Walt Hazzard, George Wilson, Cincinnati, and then a really interesting guy, Bill Bradley. Have you ever heard of Bill Bradley?
I have not.
Okay. All right. Bill Bradley is an interesting guy. He went to Princeton, right? Good school, big school, in Princeton, New Jersey. There are, at the time, 2 teams that is within 50 miles of. And so both teams, the New York Knicks and Philadelphia is always trying to weasel in here and get all these territorial picks.
They really are.
They both file and say, okay, we're using our territorial pick on Bill Bradley because he's a beast at Princeton. And then the NBA has to have another meeting or hearing or whatever to be like, okay, how do we figure this out now? Because we haven't had this happen yet where 2 guys, 2 different franchises file for the same player.
You think they would have just drew a line, like if like those small ones, just like draw like a state line. It's like I don't know, but that's just me.
Well, and the solution did get pretty obvious. So like, all right, just which home stadium is closer to Princeton's campus? And it turned out New York Knicks, Madison Square Garden, 1 mile closer.
Hey. That's
so they ruled that way for that. So they got Bill Bradley. Bill Bradley, pretty decent NBA career. But then after he was done playing in the NBA, he became a senator for the state of New York for 20 years. He was in the Senate. Ran for president in 2000. And lost to Al Gore, in the primaries. And then now, guess what Bill Bradley's doing now?
He owns a Dutch pastry shop.
Close. He is on the board of directors of Starbucks.
Why? I mean,
yeah,
pastries. I was low-key kind of close, but like
you weren't that far off.
Why is he there?
But yeah, he's like one of the 10 boards of directors of Starbucks. He did after government. He did a bunch of hedge fund management and investment banking. He's just one of those ultra wealthy New York guys.
Right.
So that's what he's doing there.
He got in on ground level, probably. He probably invested in the jump.
Probably. And then, so 1965, that was Bill Bradley there to the Knicks. And then Detroit used one on Bill Bunton from the University of Michigan. And then the last territorial pick ever was Gail Goodrich from UCLA to the LA Lakers.
Did they ever give a reason why they're getting rid of territorial picks? It's like, well, we're stopping this because did you ever come across that in your research? Because that'd be interesting to know why they just stopped doing the territorial picks. 'Cause I bet you, like you said, all the the Lakers that just moved to LA, they could have had Kareem. And so I imagine they were pretty upset with that ruling. But all like the small market teams, I bet.
It was so in 1966 they just did like a big revamp of the draft system. And that is where they started doing like cuz just overall they were like tanking became a concern at that point, and just like they were just like let's just switch it up. So 1966 is when they started the coin flip between the bottom two teams to see who gets the number one pick, and then eventually became the lottery, and then just everybody else did the reverse order of records, and so with that change they also just did away with territorial picks in like an effort to like fairness.
Fair. Yeah. It's kind of busted.
Yeah, because like Philly had like a bunch of schools right there that are all basketball schools. Obviously, New York is always going to have a lot of people around in like St. John's, NYU, etc., which especially like early basketball were wild. So just wouldn't have worked out. But a few things I did see of like, oh man, what if the lottery was still happening or like still happened throughout NBA history? I already said like Kareem would have gotten to go straight to the Lakers right away. I mean, Magic and Larry, they're now Pistons and Pacers as opposed. So that's a weird one. My favorite one, or two of my favorite ones. So just really, if you just think about it, Atlanta, they get every Georgetown player. So for like, it was a stretch in the 90s that I saw that was like, they could have gotten Patrick Ewing, Alonzo Mourning, and Dikembe and Mutombo within like 5 years of each other.
And they could have had AI.
And then AI also with that. Yeah. And then this one was actually my favorite one. So if they go from like, okay, if a guy doesn't have a college that qualifies and we look back to high school, then Kevin Garnett joins the Chicago Bulls in 1995.
Oh, that'd be ridiculous.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, that makes my skin crawl. Do not ever say Kevin Garnett and Bulls in the same sentence.
Kevin Garnett could have been on the three-peat. Maybe Michael sticks around. And it's like, okay, yeah, now we got Kevin Garnett entering his prime. Let's just have Michael and Scotty stick around and win 5 more into the early 2000s.
Yeah, because, oh my God, yeah, they could have balled out. Wow. That would have been, Kobe would have been a 76er.
Yeah.
Anthony Davis would have been a Bull. He's from, it's college. It's college.
Yeah, it's college first and foremost,
college, then high school. Kobe was high school. I mean, LeBron's still a Cav. Yeah,
LeBron, it worked out. Like Curry. Where's Davidson? I don't even know where Davidson is.
He's on the East Coast. So maybe like Charlotte.
Okay. Could be. Yeah. Kevin Durant's, well.
Which one's
Texas?
More north? Dallas or Houston?
Dallas, I think.
So he would have been a Maverick.
Yeah. Shaq and Malone both would have been in like New Orleans.
Yep, they would have been Pelicans, Hornets, whatever time era that was.
Yeah, would have literally changed everything. So, it's kind of fun to think about, but end of the day, good thing we didn't do that anymore.
Yeah, it's not a great idea.
Not the best. It was. I'm sure it worked out well in the early days. You know, when like people in Cincinnati still got to go watch Oscar. Probably sold quite a few more tickets and do all that. It was a good idea, but had to be temporary. So that's it for this first bonus episode. It was about territorial picks, my weird old shit. Hopefully you learned something. I feel like not that many people know about stuff that happened in the 50s. So
nope, just you know, man. I mean, just you.
Not just me.
You and a handful of other people out there, and those people are in their 80s and 70s.
Those people saw it. But that's it, and stay tuned later this week probably for Brock's bonus episode that we're going to record it right now. I'm excited but also worried because he said it's going to make me sad. So
you're going to be a sad boy.
All right, well, look forward to that. And bye.